Welcome to the Global Chamber's virtual event for social entrepreneurship. The Global Chamber is a thriving and collaborating community of CEOs, executives, and professionals in 500 metro areas around the world, taking on the world of global business. Our millions of trusted resources, followers, and connections in over 5,000 cities support members by growing globally, filling in the gaps that happen across borders. The Global Chamber is headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona, but exists through connections with member companies throughout the world. So good morning to you in the Americas, North and South America. Good afternoon if you're in Europe and Africa, and good evening if you are in Asia or Australia and New Zealand. My name is Richard Filley. I'm a professor of social entrepreneurship at Arizona State University. I'm based in the Department of Technology, Entrepreneurship, and Management. So I come at entrepreneurship from kind of a high-tech angle. I'd like to introduce our guest speakers today, Bishal Dahal. He's the youth coordinator for the International Visitors Alumni Association of Nepal, and he is with us from Kathmandu. And Katie Mabardy. Katie is the executive director for Arizona for Project C.U.R.E. Social entrepreneurship is really on the rise. It's something that has sort of come out of nowhere in the past decade. National Public Radio defines a social entrepreneur as someone who has had an innovative idea that will help people, and yet the project will sustain itself financially. That do-gooder effect will generate income to support itself. So it's really not a charity. A lot of organizations are taking a close look at social entrepreneurship, and that's why we're here this morning. So let's have our speakers introduce themselves. Katie, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and about Project C.U.R.E?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. It's such an honor to be here and talk about this topic. It's so relevant today. And basically, I'm Katie Mabardy. I'm the executive director of Project C.U.R.E. We are an international NGO focusing on rebuilding healthcare infrastructure in developing countries. We work in over 134 different countries, and we really focus on healthcare issues. Specifically, we will look at rebuilding hospitals and health centers. So that's the perspective I come from. But I'm also a MBA student at Thunderbird School of Global Management. So I kind of, in my personal life, really focus on the for-profit side of things. And social entrepreneurship, to me, is a really relevant topic, especially for some up-and-coming professionals. And I think companies really need to be focusing on this issue in order to attract top talent.
Great, thanks, Katie. Bishal, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the International Visitors Alumni Association of Nepal?
Thank you. My name is Bishal Dahal, and I am one of the alumni of the Department of State, and the program is International Visitors Leadership Program. It's a one-month program where the U.S. government invites us as kids, and we visit different states of the United States. Then we get exposure, we learn many things, we share our ideas, we talk with people, then we return back. So after my return on 2012, I established a community service center, and it is also it follows the model of social entrepreneurship. It is not funded by anywhere else. We generate our own fund. So the other is the International Visitors Alumni Association of Dahal that I'm engaged. Well, after my return, I felt like I could engage more and more alumni, like-minded people who can go for a greater cause with some good networking community. Then I joined the organization as the volunteer. Then I am also involved in various social activities, and I'm a social contributor. Actually, it's the word. I've written a book about it. It has features, three qualities. It's a social activist, social entrepreneur, and social worker. So, this is all about myself.
Okay, thank you, Bishal. And before we begin our discussion, Bishal, can you just give us a quick update from Nepal on the earthquake and the recovery and rebuilding efforts? How's it going?
The earthquake, it was a very sad incident. It was unexpected. There are more than 8,000 loss of lives of 8,000 people. Sadly, we have many infrastructures that were collapsed in this incident, uh, and after the government is also trying its best to provide relief supports, and relief supports are also coming from all around the world. Uh, Now it has been nearly more than 2 months of this disaster. Now we are in the second phase of reconstruction. So this is the scenario. People are getting back to normal life. Still, we are having this aftershocks, which are still scaring people, but still the people are trying to move forward with the available resources and also seeking support further. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, our hearts go out to the people of Nepal, and I'm going to be looking for a class project for my students where we can be helpful in some way. So let's have a discussion here and talk about some things. First of all, what would you say the difference is between social entrepreneurs and other social awareness groups like international not-for-profits, charities, NGOs? Any thoughts on that? Katie or
Okay. Actually, I have also practiced social entrepreneurship. In fact, I'm practicing right now. Still a learner, but as per my experience, I could find some major differences. Being a social entrepreneur is something that gives you freedom to think beyond the limitations. Comparing with the other social awareness groups and NGOs, there is no limitations. Actually, in it, you have to sustain yourself. You have to find your own ways. A person has to find his own ways to move ahead, find his solutions, and there is no dependency. So he has to think beyond what is his normal capacity, and he is also he should be well informed about the various components of the society, such as the environment, society, and economy. So with proper understanding, he can move forward. Regarding the other NGOs and advocacy groups, I think that they are more dependent. They have a specific format, and they also need to find ways for sustaining themselves. So I feel social entrepreneurship is more a realization of utilizing the best available resources and being a producer rather than being a consumer, I think.
That's good.
I like that. I think that's great, Bishal. I completely agree. I think, as you mentioned, Professor Filley, the definition of social entrepreneurship is actually kind of broad. You're looking at individuals who are creating innovative solutions to society's problems. So it's kind of a broad definition, and they can choose different formats. What I like about what Bishal's saying is that really you can look at creating value, and you have flexibility. And that's what I think social entrepreneurship brings to you. Maybe that's different from a nonprofit format or an NGO or charity format, or even a business for-profit format. So to me, the difference between a social entrepreneur and an entrepreneur is that we're defining success differently. So an entrepreneur is defining success as shareholder value. So that's really what we're looking at. But for a social entrepreneur, we may be looking at that also, but what we're also looking at is the return on societal value. And I think that's to me how I differentiate the two.
Yeah, I would say that social entrepreneurs offer individuals an opportunity to make a difference. And when you get large NGOs, like, say, organizations from the United Nations that do good work, the fact is they still might have huge budgets and thousands of people. They are in need of innovation and disruptive ideas.
Absolutely.
And those are going to come from social entrepreneurs. So the exciting thing about this is that social entrepreneurship gives the power to the individual to make a difference and change their world. And for young people the world over, that's a great opportunity. And I can't remember more opportunity, especially because of the power of technology to make huge differences in people's lives. Well, does social entrepreneurship affect the global market? And if so, how?
Well, I definitely think so. As you said, Richard, Professor Filley, social entrepreneurs are really looking and creating disruptive ideas, and that to me has a huge impact on the global market. I know that a lot of firms are looking more at impact investing or socially responsible investing, and that's gaining popularity. So I think that may also start to impact the global market. I think most of these most social entrepreneurs are looking outside of their borders. That's just kind of the world I live in, so that's my impression. And so I think that it's starting to have an impact globally, and I think it's only going to become more so. So this to me is a very relevant topic and one that we should certainly pay a lot of attention to moving forward as social entrepreneurship and this format really gains more popularity. But what I like about, from a global market perspective and impact investing is that there's firms that are looking specifically at organizations and companies that are practicing environmental stewardship, consumer protection, human rights, diversity. They're looking at those issues. And I think that's a really positive trend.
I agree. Bishal, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Katie. And in addition, from my perspective, how I would see is its effect on the global market is, first of all, I would like to say about the structure, may it be global or may it be at the grassroots. There are some common elements. For example, let me take the example of Nepal and the United States. We have the same structure. We have the land, we have the different elements of the society. Only might be the difference of the development. Someone growing at a higher speed or someone still to grow. So there are similarities. And by this, what I mean to say is that grassroots and global is directly connected. It's like a chain. So it has definitely, social entrepreneurship has the effect on the global market. Like Katie said, these bigger companies would seek solutions that would also help them sustain. And these solutions come through these kinds of thinking, that these solutions, the innovative approaches by the social entrepreneurs create. Might they create at the smaller level, but when it is projected to a bigger level, it applies to the whole globally. So it has an impact on a global system. I think that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another thing, and just to kind of add to what Bishal is saying, that to me, like, social entrepreneurship is solving major global issues, right? Whether it's at the grassroots level or not. And these major issues hinder, so this is kind of indirect, but these major issues hinder business development and markets around the world. So by solving those major issues, you're actually paving the way for future investment and business opportunities. So I think that's a kind of an indirect way of how social entrepreneurs are impacting the global market and actually really have an impact on business development around the world.
What I've seen happen as well, I agree, Katie, and what I've seen happen is that when you solve one problem, suddenly something else comes up. So for instance, in a lot of places in the developing world, access to clean drinking water is a problem. So social entrepreneurs will come in and fix that problem. Well, then it turns out that the water, if the infrastructure to transport water is not there, that water has been carried by girls or women. And so when you come up with a way to clean the drinking water, suddenly you have a female empowerment issue where you have to figure out as a village or as a society, okay, we don't need women to carry water anymore. Now what are we going to do? How do we educate women? And that's a good problem to have. But this happens often when social entrepreneurs come into situations that there's really more to it than it might appear on the surface. So if we're to think about opportunities for businesses to both make a profit and help the world, what are some of the ways that you've seen where businesses can do that, create and sustain social value, not just private value? In other words, it's not just about profit. How can a company make profit but do more?
Absolutely. I actually really like the B Corp model, and I think that this is kind of a growing movement. And so, what a B Corp is it's a certification basically for businesses who have proven, who have proven to return societal value, and it's a pretty you have to meet high standards of transparency and accountability and performance in order to get this certification. But what I like about the B Corp model is that it's a movement to redefine success in business. So it's using business to solve major societal issues and to be a force for good. So not just focusing on shareholder value, which is important, and you can use that as a force for good. So that's what B Corps are focused on both. On returning shareholder value and also returning societal value. So I think it kind of offers a more positive vision and a better way to do business. And I think that moving forward, a lot of young professionals are looking to their companies to prove that they're doing these things, to prove that they're having an impact in a bigger and greater way than just returning shareholder value. So that's kind of the model that I like. Some examples that you're all familiar with is like Tom's Shoes. Ben & Jerry's is a good model. Patagonia I really like. So like Patagonia has really figured out exactly who their customers are. They're dedicated to, returning shareholder value. It's a for-profit business, but they really measure their success based on societal values. So they invest in environmental organizations to protect wildlife and all these things that are really true to the values of the company, but they also create sustainable products. So like everything that they create can be recycled or repurposed. They collect things back from their consumers. But either way, I mean, what I like about it, this is just one example of many B Corp organizations. But like I said, they're focused on both, and I think that's a really positive thing.
Great. Bishal?
Yeah, it's a very good question. In fact, looking forward from the business perspective, I remember before the concept of the industries, whatever the industries we used to produce, there was a concept, okay, whatever we produce, the consumers have to consume it. But it's evolving and it's getting transformed, and now what we have, we produce as per the need of the consumers. So the choice of the consumers and the social situations are changing all the time, locally and globally. So in this perspective, I think it's very important to include the benefit of the society and also, along with the growth of the business, growth of the profit, at the same time, it's very important. I think any business organization cannot sustain by the previous model that the only the consuming the goods that have been produced, uh, not including the population of the society or the values of the society. Uh, I think the growing business house should, if they want to sustain, then they have to include their own profit and also conserve these social values at the same time. I would like to give an example of one of the mobile phone which has its services of accessibility. The by having that service of accessibility, the people with disabilities can use the phones in more like easier than before. So by the growth of business, we have some communities who have who are getting benefits from this business, and at the same time, the company is also like inviting more customers who are people with disabilities. This is just an example. So things are evolving, and along with the profit of the company, I think there needs to be a diversity of the social values to be considered. For example, in Nepal, we have some few branded hotels which have like traditional, architecture. Like when the customers come in, they feel like they are inside a typical cultural room. They enjoy the food. The company, the hotel gets profit from selling the food, its services, and at the same time, the consumer looks at these models of culture, and the culture is also preserved at the same time. And I think these types of opportunities and practices uh, are there, along with, like, I think the companies should make a profit and also the world or the society at the same time. Thank you.
Well, I like your ideas about profit, Bishal. I think when we think about profit, a big multinational company coming into a country and setting up operations is going to take a different look at what sort of profit they want and how much money they make, what sort of return they're going to get on the investment that they're making. That's going to be a lot different than a social entrepreneur, particularly if that social entrepreneur is from that country and operating in that cultural context. So, for instance, a social entrepreneur from Cambodia may come into a village and work with them on a problem and create a product that people are willing to pay a culturally relevant price for, and there can be a profit that would not be interesting to an American or a French or a Japanese company, but it might be very successful in that context, especially when we look at social entrepreneurs operating in the developing world. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to make a difference and make money in a business setting, and it depends on the country, but here in the United States, we call them 501c3 organizations that still make a profit. It's what they do with that profit that would distinguish them as a nonprofit or not-for-profit type of organization.
Exactly.
So, what do you think about some trends that you're seeing happening in social entrepreneurship? And then maybe I could ask, is social entrepreneurship itself a trend? Do you think it's a fad that is going to come and go, or is it here to stay?
I think it's a very good question. I think it's more a realization. It's the realization of people that the person that they have the ability to sustain their projects or their vision. So I think when it is being practiced by more number of people in a more tangible way, it has been considered as a trend. So I rather see it as a need of realization rather than a trend. Um, and some of the trends that I can see happening the social entrepreneurship is like in every business model. Uh, I think there's evolving change to give back to the society, and also at the same time make profit and gain their return on investment. So I can see it applicable on all kinds of products globally and locally. Even if some of the companies seeking growth are just looking at the profit, one day or the other, they will have to come to a realization that they have to go in a sustainable way. So I think I see it as a realization rather than a trend. Thank you.
Okay.
That's great. I agree with Bishal. I don't know. I mean, to me, I think we've had individuals who have addressed and created innovative solutions to problems for all of time. So, in that respect, I don't really look at it as a trend. Um, but I do think it's a movement that, in my opinion, I'm a little biased, but in my opinion, is here to stay. I kind of live in this world, and I really do believe that especially the younger generations coming up into the workforce are really looking for more than a paycheck. So they really want to do something greater than themselves, be involved with something that's having a meaningful impact in the world, either locally or globally or both. And so I think that, to me, you could maybe say that that's a generational trend. I don't know, but I think it's here to stay. I think that people are going to want to continue to invest our time and energy into causes that are solving real problems. And that's not to say you can't work for a big corporation or whatnot, but that corporation needs to prove to you that it's doing something positive for the world. And so I think this whole idea about social entrepreneurship, whether you're an individual, you're an entrepreneur, you're going out and creating disruptive ideas, and you choose a different format, or you're a large corporation, I think the trend is almost the same. And I think that, like, you look at corporate social responsibility, right? And I think a lot of companies are choosing to create robust CSR departments because they really understand that they want to attract top talent, in addition to the social benefits, obviously. But I think that they want to prove to their employees, and also obviously to their customers, they have some of these companies have a competitive advantage if they recognize what their values are and can prove that through corporate social responsibility. So I think in some sense it's social entrepreneurship has always been here, but I think that the movement is strengthening, and the trend towards corporate social responsibility is increasing and gaining momentum. And in my opinion, I think it's here to stay.
Well, I agree, Katie. When I look at the world, I see technology really changing the game.
Absolutely.
In entrepreneurship in a way that allows one person with few resources to leverage those and have an impact on many. Two technologies I think that have really changed the game. One, of course, is the internet, because once you are on the internet, you suddenly become a world player. It's what the author Thomas Friedman was talking about in his book from the 90s called The World is Flat. Suddenly there's a much larger playing field for young people around the world as soon as they get onto the internet. And an extension of that then would be cell phone technology, where old technology phones are now turning into smartphones. I believe that something like 70% of the world is covered by cell phones, and billions of people now have cell phones. I think over half the people in the world now have a cell phone. In fact, Bishal, I believe that there is a cell tower on top of Mount Everest. That's how widely cell coverage is getting these days. Are there other technologies that you can think about that you've seen have a big impact that allow social entrepreneurs to be more effective, maybe do what they do faster, better, or less expensively? Can you think of things that you've observed?
For me, I've seen in in Africa specifically, and it's around mobile technology, but using it almost as a banking system. So you can transfer funds back and forth, and they can be in small amounts, $5, $10, $15, $3, or large amounts. And I've seen that impact social movements in Africa specifically, and it's been really interesting to watch to see the impact of that mobile banking system seriously redefined rural communities and the access that people in rural communities have to resources, because they can receive funds from their family or friends in urban centers, and now all of a sudden they have access to purchasing rice or other commodities that they need to survive. And it's just been kind of an interesting thing, and a lot of some NGOs have used it, and then social entrepreneurs I've seen have really been impacted, especially in the rural communities, by this mobile technology, and more specifically the banking, them using it as a banking system.
Okay. Any thoughts, Bishal?
Yes, I have liked mostly about this branchless banking. Previously, there used to be a big office at the bank, and the customers, people would go to deposit the amount and return back. But in rural parts, what we have introduced, I've seen the introduction of this branchless banking, where there's a device, and people are used to getting banking, the knowledge of banking services. Like they are more used to financial terms, some this remittance services and trade services, and they are empowering themselves by using these kinds of services. Previously, they did not have ideas of these, and it has a real impact on the market whenever a farmer has to sell his goods, and when he collects money, he's more secure now, and he's also the ideas of investment through these kinds of branchless banking. It's a technology. And another I have seen is uh, the mobile phone, the SMS bankings. I mean, sorry, SMS, where the farmers, like they send SMS and the short message and receive the market rates of the different vegetables, and they're using mobile phones from remote parts to know about the marketplace, and they are getting good price of their products that they sell in the market. Previously, they did not get so. These kinds of technologies, they might look very simple, but they have a greater impact on the lives of people. So I think this is my experience on that.
Yeah, that's some great insight, Vishal. Another thing I've seen is the advent of low-cost solar energy, solar power, where portable, small but high-efficiency solar panel units that can be taken into remote areas that do not have electricity. Suddenly, now you have a way to not only turn on a light bulb, but maybe power a tablet or a computer or recharge a phone or a smartphone, and that kind of changes things. And in fact, it's not here yet, but one interesting technology I see coming once you have access to electricity is 3D printing. Because one of the problems in villages is things break, they don't have the ability to get things that can today be made with a 3D printer. So maybe in the next decade, let's look for small, low-cost 3D printers that will start showing up in remote areas powered by solar power. Any final thoughts, panelists?
Yeah, I would like to share one of the things I've been practicing in the community service center I established. Like recently, we purchased one smart television, and it is more advanced than the other traditional television TV. So we have an organic kitchen where we when our cook cooks food and we sell it to the customers and we earn the money. Then we operate, we pay rent and the other services of this facility. And what we found when we purchased that television in his office, uh, the cook, he started to learn from YouTube how to cook good food. So we did not have to spend money on providing him training. He did not have to pay the training fees. Instead, he's using the technology to learn by himself. So I think this is also this has become one of the good example for our neighboring organizations who are still looking for the funds from different other sources who are dependent. So I think this technology can be really something with social entrepreneurship, something I'm proud to say that I've been practicing. So
Great.
I would like to share that. Thank you.
Oh, that's great, Bishal. Thank you for sharing that example. I just want to say thank you, and thank you, Professor Filley and Bishal, for your thoughts on this topic. I'm really interested in it. I think it's so important, and I'm really glad that the Global Chamber has decided to do this and really promote some of these topics. I think this is a great format, and I'm really excited about some of the upcoming topics that they're going to be sharing as well, and just honored to take a part of this and promote social entrepreneurship and bring up the conversation more and more. I think it's something that we all should be paying close attention to, and I think whether or not you're working for a for-profit or a non-profit or whatever, I think that the ultimate goal is for all of us to do well so that we can do good. And to me, that's what social entrepreneurship represents. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Bishal. Thank you, audience, for joining us. And I'd like to thank the Global Chamber as well. If you'd like to find out more about the Global Chamber, please visit their website at www.globalchamber.org for more information on joining them. And they have another event that's going to take place on July 28th, Marketing Without Borders. You're welcome to tune in for that as well. So, listeners, I thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Goodbye.